everyone, welcome to the Hey Hannah podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Maya Fields, but to my friends and those who know me well, I'm just Maya. I'm a higher education administrator, a mother, and a wife of 14 amazing years. But above all, I'm a Christ follower. This podcast is a special platform created to honor the memory of my beloved daughter, Hannah. It's here that I have the chance to have the conversations that I never got to have with her, to share the wisdom and love I wish I could have passed on. It's a reminder to cherish the precious moments we're given and a testament to the power of healing, hope, and personal growth. If you're someone who's seeking personal growth, inspiration, and practical advice to build a solid foundation for a successful and fulfilling life, this is the place for you. Join me as we honor Hannah's memory together. Laugh, cry, and learn. Get ready for a podcast that is so much more than you could ever imagine. The Hey Hannah podcast, healing hearts, one conversation at a time. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hey Hannah podcast. This is a place where we navigate education, parenthood, self-improvement, loss, so many different topics that we want to tackle. But our mission is to arm you with tools and perspectives and stories that ultimately help you live life well, no matter what you're going through. I'm your host, Dr. Maya, and today we're diving into a topic that I'm sure many of you can relate to. And that's not letting the external chaos or circumstances around you change the essence of who you are. So I started thinking about this topic because recently I had a situation that came up and I was interacting with an individual and we started having some communication, and I felt like the communication just was not going ideal. That's probably like the nicest way I can put it. I felt like things were kind of getting off the rails with, how we were moving forward with communicating with each other. And I felt like I was pulling out my different things to try to kind of get things back on track. And it wasn't working. And I was feeling just kind of confused, like what's going on? I don't understand, like how we're getting to this area with our communication. But inevitably, that's where we were. And so life is complex. I'm sure many of you have dealt with situations where, it just wasn't working out as ideally as you would have hoped that it would have. And it may have left you feeling hurt, misunderstood, or even just lost or confused, similar to how I was feeling in this moment. Um, these emotions, they're not just common emotions. They are absolutely valid. They're a part of, what lets us know that we're human. We're feeling things, things bother us. It's okay to admit that. And feeling that we are actively engaging with the world around us. We're not just like letting things float on by. But while it's okay to feel things, while your feelings are valid, what I want to emphasize is that it's crucial to reach a point where these emotions are not steering the ship of your life. So it's okay to acknowledge when you feel hurt, like I said, misunderstood, confused, but we can't let that just completely take over everything that we're doing. Now, our emotions, they should be an indicator. Don't let them be a dictator. So they can guide us to understand, the things that matter. In that moment, they were guiding me to understand that, it mattered to me that I was feeling misunderstood in this moment. It mattered to me that the perception that this individual had, I feel like was not correct. Those things mattered, and that's what those emotions were triggering for me. Yet it's essential that they didn't necessarily control my reaction or my decision. So learning to acknowledge our feelings without letting them dominate our actions is a skill. I'm still working on that skill. I think that's something that we refine over a lifetime. It's not anything that is just like, oh, check that off the box. I've arrived. I'm done with that one. But it's one that we're continuously working at, and one that I am always working on. But in order for me to work on that, I have first have to acknowledge, like, yes, my emotions are valid, but I don't want to let it completely steer everything that's going on in my life. So, when situations like this come up, we have to remind ourselves that we cannot and we should not attempt to control anybody else. Like, we can't control other people. It's not our job to. Like, we are tasked with enough responsibilities here, person specifically, an adult on your plate. Many of the times we already have so many other things going on, but allowing someone's actions or treatment towards you to dictate your self-worth or your state of being, it just really gives them a large amount of power that in many cases they don't even deserve. A power that they should not possess. So keep that in mind when you are trying to keep everything in a healthy perspective. And remember that the only behavior that you can control is your own. And by focusing on your responses, you reclaim your power and remain anchored in who you are, irrespective of the storms around us. Now, in my particular situation, at that time, I was, not really thinking about handing this person the power and all this, like, keeping your emotions in check. My initial thought was like, well, you know, they're saying this. Let me make sure they know who they, you go into who they think they talking to, that kind of conversation. But Paul tells us, I think in Romans, like, in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. So we know, like, our natural reaction most of the time is like that flesh reaction. Like, you're saying what to me? I'm about to, make sure you know that this doesn't need to happen again. But as we continue to work on not letting emotions completely control us, for me, I reference scripture a lot. So a gut check for me is, okay, I know in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. So my natural reaction is going to be to do something fleshly. That is not what I'm aiming to do. Overall, my value system, what I'm striving to do requires me to do something different. And I have a gut check verse for me, and maybe it'll serve the same for you. But in Luke, I read it one time in a devotional, I believe. And you read scripture a lot of times when you read through the Bible, but sometimes things just kind of pop out at you. And that's why I love that the word is called the living word, because it gives you, the word that you need at that particular time. So that's why you read stuff. You can read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John 50,000 times, but you can still read Luke next week and get a new revelation from it because it is the living word. But anyway, so I was reading Luke 6. And it said, here's a simple rule of thumb for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, then grab the initiative and do it for them. If you only love the lovable, do you expect a pat on the back? Run of the mill sinners do that. So this is the message version. So the message version is a little bit more in plain language, but essentially it's saying, if you love people that are only the people that love you, if you're kind to people that are only kind to you, what is the difference between you and an unbeliever? Like, what is the thing that makes you different? Everyone can do that. Like, literally, Luke is telling you everybody can do that. But the difference is, how are you going to respond? What does love look like in a situation when that person is not treating you the way you desire to be treated? That's what I'm striving for. As a believer, I am consistently striving to be in the place where I can ask myself, even in situations that are not favorable, what does love require of me now? And that's most of the time not a flesh reaction, if I'm just being honest. It's a reaction that takes some time to refocus myself on my values and get to a point where that is the reaction that's coming up. So, if I have that in mind, knowing that my behavior is the only behavior that I can control, um, and focusing strictly on my responses, again, I'm able to reclaim that power and remain just, anchored in who I am, regardless of the storm that's going on around us. And, that whole thing just kind of reminds me of the story of Job. And I'm not going to dig all the way into the story of Job, but, one of the things with Job is despite what was going on with him, despite how the enemy was testing him and bringing things against him, even when Job's friends were doubting him, he still was praising the Lord. Like, regardless of the situation around him, he remained anchored in who he was, which was a praiser. And so initially, when the enemy is having a conversation with the Lord about Job, he's saying the only reason Job loves you, or the only reason Job praising you all the time, is because you're good to Job. But if you change this, you change the narrative. Watch Job change his story. And that didn't happen. He was able to remain anchored. He was able to remain true to who he was, a praiser, despite the circumstances. So that reminds me, as I'm thinking about, okay, claiming my power, remaining true to who I am, remaining true to my value system despite what's going on. It reminds me of Job. And again, something we're all aiming for. If you feel discouraged, like, I wish I would have reacted differently. We all feel that way at different times. But the point is, we're striving to do better. So for those of you who are looking to deepen your understanding, and really just help your skills grow in that area, there's a couple things I'll recommend. The first thing, there's a book called Emotional Agility, and it really dives into some insightful strategies. I am all about, I mention this all the time, arming yourself with strategies. So when the situation comes up, you have some tools in your tool belt that you can reach for and help you successfully tackle the situation. So hopefully what that book gives you some strategies that you can use. Of course, I have to always throw in some scripture, and Proverbs tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And I want to remind us all of this scripture because it underscores the importance of being vigilant about what we allow to influence our hearts. So other people's treatment of you, other people's reactions, or the things that they say, don't let that influence your heart. Don't let it taint the person that you are, because if it influences your heart, it can trickle over into your mind. Um, and I just want to encourage you not to let that happen, so that you can maintain and I can maintain my core and your core integrity. That's what we're aiming for. So I believe that every experience that we have, even unfavorable situations, we can learn from, especially uncomfortable ones. There's definitely lessons to be learned. Nothing is wasted. Whenever I find myself in less than ideal circumstances, this is what I ask myself: what can I learn from this? How can I use this situation to make me better? And what part of this situation can I control? So in this particular situation, when I said, what can I learn from this? One of the things that I learned is everything is not always as it seems. Because again, with this individual, I was very surprised at the way that this communication was coming across, because we've never been in a space like that. And I really didn't understand what was going on. So what I did learn is everything is not always as it seems. How can I use this situation to make me better? So, in this situation, I was definitely working out some patience, because, again, my flesh wanted to respond with, let me tell you, and go XYZ, and, how I felt. But again, remaining true to my values, that's not what I was aiming for. So that situation was making me better because I was working out my patience. That situation was making me better because I literally was getting to a point where I didn't want to respond anymore, because I just wanted to pray, because I didn't want to go into a space of, and the situation made me better because as I was looking to respond, I was actively looking for a way to respond in a way that would push things forward and not in a way to where I felt like I'm giving a response, I'm matching your energy, that type of thing. So I felt like that situation was making me better in those particular ways. And the part of the situation that I controlled was me. I could not control the response. I could not control, how the person would react when I said what I said or, whatever came next. But what I could control is my behavior. I could control, and I was over, I'm still going to treat them right. I'm still going to treat them in a way that I would be proud of. I'm still going to communicate with them, in a respectful manner. Those are the things that I can control. So these questions, they're not just reflective, but they're transformative because the main thing is they're going to shift your perspective from victimhood to like, what's happening to me? Why they're, that type of thing to empowerment because now you're looking from passivity to action. Like these are the things that you can do. So, to help you integrate this mindset, I encourage you to try the following exercise. So, the next time you face a challenging situation, I want you to take a moment and breathe deep, then ask yourself these three questions. What can I learn from this? How can I use this situation to make me better? And what part of this situation can I control? Write down your answers and, do some reflection. This practice not only offers clarity, but it also prepares you to handle similar situations in the future with resilience and wisdom because if a similar situation comes up, it's like this is not my first rodeo. I know, kind of how I want to handle things, and hopefully that'll be a tool in your tool belt to handle a similar situation like that in the future. So as we close out, I just want you to remember that life is not always about just waiting for storms to pass, but a lot of it is about figuring out how you're going to thrive in the storm, in spite of. And by embracing our emotions, maintaining our independence from external control, and viewing every experience as a learning opportunity, we stay true to ourselves, whatever decides to come our way. So thank you for joining me today on the Hey Hannah podcast. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. Together, let's continue to learn, grow, and navigate life with grace and courage. Remember to stay true, stay you, and until next time, everybody, take care. And that's it. I'm out of here. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Hey Hannah podcast. We hope that you found inspiration, insight, and encouragement in our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay connected with us, be sure to like, subscribe, and review the Hey Hannah podcast. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread our message of love and wisdom. You can also follow us on social media at Hey Hannah Podcast. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to stay updated on all the latest episodes, behind-the-scenes exclusives, and engaging content. And for those of you who prefer the visual experience, catch the video versions of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Just search Hey Hannah Podcast and hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. For even more Hey Hannah goodness, visit our website at www.heyhannahpodcast.com. There you'll find updates, bonus content, and join a community that embraces you with open arms. Your continued support truly means the world to us. Together, let's spread love, share wisdom, and honor every precious moment. Because here at Hey Hannah, we believe that life is meant to be lived well. Remember, a new episode of the Hey Hannah podcast is released every Wednesday, so mark your calendars and be sure to tune in. Thank you again for being a part of Hannah's Hive. Until next time, take care.
Entertainment.